Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to This is the Bigger Picture Movement panel. We are so excited. We have so much in store for you. My name is Marcus Williams,
Hello, my name is Brittany Davis.
and we will be the facilitators of this discussion. A little bit about me. My name is Marcus Williams. I use him, his pronouns. I serve as the external affairs chair of the movement, where I have the lucky opportunity and glad to do programming with the movement and program this event with you all with my lovely deputy.
Hello, all. My name is Brittany Davis. I am the Deputy of External Affairs for the party, the movement, and I'm so excited to be here today to facilitate this event for you all.
Now, Brittany, do you think they're ready for this really amazing panel that we have for them today?
I don't think they're ready to see how great these leaders that we have for them today.
Just a little bit about them. These people were selected because we have noticed the hard work, determination, resilience in their leadership and their involvement in them as just as a person, whether it be on Florida State University campus, the other spaces that they involve themselves in, or even them as a person. We must acknowledge our student leaders along the way as we are progressing through this university, but as we are progressing through leadership. And so we really wanted to have an important discussion about acknowledging yesterday, appreciating today because tomorrow's our gift, but also focus on the conversation more so on equity, diversity, and leadership. And so I would love to introduce one of our first panelists of this evening, Morgan Jones.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Jones. I'm currently a junior at Florida State University. Um, my major is sport management, and I'm on the women's basketball team. I'm involved in a number of things on campus. Student Athlete Advisory Council, Black Student Athlete Association, Women in Leadership Development. I'm a member of the Glamorous Zeta Omicron chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated on campus, and I'm excited to be here.
We're excited for you to be here. Thank you for joining us, Morgan.
Next on our list of panelists, we have Brianna Brewer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brianna Brewer. I am a third-year criminology major from Jacksonville, Florida. Some capacities that I do serve on campus and previously served on. I am the former Alumni Affairs Director for the Black Student Union. I currently serve as the President for the Evolve Movement. I am a Director for the Office of Governmental Affairs, and I am a former intern for Congressman Al Lawson, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. In my capacity on Evolve, I serve as the care liaison.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Next up on the panel, we have the lovely excuse me, it's been a long day, y'all. Romane, I'm sorry, I'm having a pronunciation issue right now. Romane Rayford.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ramona Rayford. I am a fourth year student majoring in psychology from Orlando, Florida. I serve in numerous capacities, but my main ones are I currently serve as a vice president for the Black Student Union, and I am the recording secretary for the hardworking Kappa Epsilon chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I'm excited to be here.
You better represent in this space. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'm so sorry about the name pronunciation.
Next on our list, we have Ireland Hadley.
Hi everyone, I am Ireland Hadley. I use he, they pronouns. I am involved with countless organizations, but my main involvement involves the Asian American Student Union. I am also a current Senate candidate for the Movement Party for College of Social Sciences and Public Policy seat 4.
Thank you so much for taking your time to be here today.
As you can see, everybody on this panel comes from all different walks of life, from different spaces on campus, but most importantly, leadership. And I think that we will get into a really deep and meaningful conversation in this space today. And I'm so excited for us to get into it. So let's get into the first question.
Before
So,
we start, we do have one last panelist.
yes, I'm so sorry. How can I forget this person? How can I forget the Brittany? Would you do the honors?
We have the lovely Jaylene that would join us this evening.
I see how you forgot me, Marcus, but I'm gonna forgive it. Hey everyone, my name is Jaylene Noel. I go by she, her, and hers pronouns. I'm a graduating senior majoring in political science and sociology. And my time here at FSU, I've encompassed various communities, but currently I serve as the director of the Women's Student Union, and I am a member of the glamorous Zeta Omicron chapter of Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I'm very excited to be with you all this evening.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry, y'all. Mind me if throughout this panel discussion, if I be a little off my cues. I've been out all day today campaigning. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sorry if I butcher anyone's introduction, but hopefully everybody will get to know a little bit more about everyone in this discussion today, because we'll be getting really deep into who we are, what is leadership, and how we navigate these spaces on this campus. And so I pose this question, being that, we, as the movement is hosting this event, being that the movement is focused on the bigger picture this year, through your capacity and through your lens, what do you consider the bigger picture on your pathway towards diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I'll go ahead and start off. I think a big part of diversity and inclusion is also like reaching out to our own communities back home, because part of the diversity and inclusion is also encouraging and providing those opportunities for those who didn't have access to them at first. So being somebody who is a first generation student and comes from a smaller community, Davenport, Florida, there's not a lot of people from Polk County who come to Florida State. So being one of those people to kind of be an example, and through my diversity and inclusion work here at Florida State, just can everybody hear me clearer now?
It is breaking off just a little bit, but definitely we're gonna pose the question to someone else, and then we can figure out like some internet and audio issues, and then we can definitely recircle back to you so that we can hear you all the way through.
Okay.
Okay, I think I can answer the question. I think the bigger picture for me in itself is making sure that everyone is included. So the people that aren't represented. So for example, I'm able to, put my voice out there for other people, but making sure those people have that voice. So I'm from Jacksonville, and a lot of people that I went to school with, for say, didn't necessarily make it out. And just making sure people like me that wanted to make myself get out of there, giving those people that didn't have a chance a chance. That's the bigger picture for me, at least.
And just to follow up on that, I'm also from Jacksonville, so understanding like that not only do we come from a variety of backgrounds, we also come from a variety of identities. Intersectionality is something that has become more of a focus on our campus, and it's a good thing. I come from a diverse background. I'm Filipino, I'm mixed, I am also queer. And understanding that all these identities come to make up one whole person and not just picking and choosing at where it's at is really important, because we can't be choosing people and looking at certain people for their identities and their diversity and all this stuff. We have to look at them as a whole and what they can bring to the table and what their communities can bring to the table, to move forward on our campus and have the changes that we want to see. We have to take people as a whole and see their stories and their lived experiences and everything that they can bring to the table so we can move forward, and to be that whole community that we need to see for diversity and equity and inclusion. Can't come at just certain communities and can't just come at certain areas. It has to come from every part of our campus and every part of our communities and identities that we hold. So I think intersectionality is the big picture for me and how we're going to move forward.
Oh, next, I know for myself, being in the athletics community, one big thing that we like to harp on is diversity and inclusion, obviously. So, I think that a lot of student athletes we have a lot of student athletes from different countries, different places all around. So I think that um, everyone with different backgrounds, we just have to find ways to, unite everyone, make everyone feel included. A lot of people that aren't even from here aren't used to the culture here, but they're on here on full scholarship, so making them feel welcomed and just including them in things can really make or break someone's experience. So I think that that's important, especially for international students. I know I have a few international teammates from England, Brazil, Spain, all over the place. So I think that diversity and inclusion is important because even though we're all from different places, we should still be a family.
I'm going to second what Ireland and Morgan said about building those meaningful relationships. I feel like in the community that I currently serve in and I represent, there needs to be those relationships, something to connect the current students of Florida State back to the university. I feel like in order to move forward, you have to have a sense of pride in the university that you attend, or something that keeps you grounded to stay here, to want to make sure the university moves forward and becomes better for those to come after us. I agree that we have to reach out to the students who are coming into Florida State that just got their acceptances, letting them know the different areas of campus that they can find their niche. I feel like oftentimes the university gravitates and showcases the big things that, bring money into Florida State University and what we're renowned for. But those little things, those little clubs that you think don't have that many members of it, that's also what keeps Florida State being so diverse, being so inclusive, is knowing that if you want to start a belly dancing organization, you can go ahead and do it because that's your interest and people will join. I feel like we have to showcase those smaller things that show the diversity that Florida State does currently have on campus in order to push us towards being more inclusive.
Okay, and I hope y'all can hear me. So yeah, basically Brianna and Ramone kind of touched on the point I was trying to make, is that reaching out to those coming in from your own community or even like surrounding communities in Tallahassee through programs such as CARE and the pre-collegiate programs is very important in kind of continuing the culture of diversity and inclusion, because it's good to set the foundation while we're here. But if we don't have individuals who have those opportunities to come in or are aware of these opportunities, then it'll be difficult to have people who hold the university accountable to continue the diversity and inclusion work.
Definitely. Everything that y'all all said in this space is the reality of being a student, but also a leader on this campus. And the fact that we brought into the conversation about the FSU administration, I think that really plays into the future of FSU. How can we ensure that diversity, equity, inclusion is not just something that's on the cover of a booklet, but more so promoted through these clubs and institutions that hold these spaces for the students, that really keep the students not only staying here, but also keep FSU going itself. So I appreciate everything that y'all shared in this space. Moving on to the next question.
So the next question we would like to ask you all would be, through your pathway, what is missing from the peers that you encounter on this journey?
I can go ahead and start this one off. So I feel like what's missing from my peers on my journey is understanding of others. I feel like there's a such thing as you can disagree, but still have respect for other people. If their opinions do not align with yours, you can always learn more. So I feel like there needs to be more understanding as well as more knowledge, stepping out of the spaces that you are currently in to understand what gravitates others to the spaces that they are currently involved in. And when you do that, you're able to foster new relationships. You are able to grow as an individual because you now have an overall understanding of those around you and those who are different from you. And I feel like to move forward, you can't just stay in your spaces. You need to step out. You need to branch out. You need to be diverse if you want a diverse community. And that starts with understanding others and gaining that knowledge for yourself.
Yeah, I really agree with what Ramone said there. But my point, I think one of my main points is our cancel culture. So I think that now we're in a time where we like to cancel each other out and we're not unified. And the biggest thing that we're looking for from everyone is unity. That's the only thing that makes a community in all aspects. So there's some things that, of course, we know we don't tolerate, but there's also some things that, like Ramone touched on, you need to understand others rather than just cancel them out, call them out, or be just that type of person. So just understanding people, getting to know them, and having more human interactions, I think that is what brings unity in the community.
For me, one thing I would say I think is missing is holding each other accountable when it comes to communities that you yourself don't frequent, because it's easy to feel very strongly about like slurs or wrongdoings done towards your personal community. But I think there becomes a disconnect when it's a community that you aren't a part of, then and you don't truly understand the experiences of the people within that community, so you're not as willing or as steadfast when it comes to being an advocate or correcting your friends when they're wrong and using slurs against those communities. And I think that we can all work on as a collective is holding each other accountable, despite whether or not that's a community that's
So can you hear me? I'm not sure. It looks a little laggy for me. All right, great. So I was actually asked this question a little bit earlier today, and for me personally, one thing that I would love to see on our campus is empathy. We all have very diverse lived experiences, and we all come from different places. And so for us to find that empathy with others, like other stories and others' lives, we can't change hearts without having that empathy to understand, to put place in ourselves in their shoes, and to really get to know that person on an intimate level and moving them with their emotions. Because when we are trying to ask people to understand our experiences, we have to understand theirs so we can get to a point to where they can understand ours. And empathy is that number one way to someone's heart, and saying like, yeah, I understand, but this is where I'm coming from. And me being slurred while walking into my own dorm the other day, I don't want to ever experience that, and I don't want you to ever experience something that harmed me, would harm you. And to say like, that is where we can start, is just giving our hearts to others and our stories to others is going to help our own wants and our own wants for diversity, equity, and inclusion, but also to move people's hearts and to bring them into a movement of empathy, of story, and of love. And that's how we can truly change the world, is through our hearts, and not through just like bashing people, which occasionally works, but is not always the 100% best way to do it. And I think that we can always do a little bit more empathy and a little bit more love.
I will definitely agree, because I feel like in the world today, there's this thing where if it's not happening to me, then it doesn't affect me. So if it is not something that is going to harm me, or if it is something that's benefiting me, then I'm going to join it. If it's not harming me, then I'm not going to worry about it. And I feel like that's some of the problems that we currently have. To echo what Brianna said, we are not unified in the things that we do. No matter like what your community, there's a lot of division. So I feel like if you can't recognize that just because it's not affecting your community or you specifically, that doesn't mean that it's okay. That doesn't mean that it's right. And you should still take a stand, just because if roles were reversed, you would want someone else to stand up for you. And I feel like oftentimes we don't step into other shoes and realize, yes, this is not affecting me, but how is it affecting those that are involved? And how would I feel if this was me? And if that's the case, then, and you know that you would feel bothered, then you need to go ahead and you need to speak out. You need to defend, and so you can fix the issue and better your relationship with others in the university.
Y'all just dropped some gems. Y'all really brought the fact that serving isn't just about serving the communities that you know of or the identities that you possess, but it's about connecting with everybody. And that leading with empathy is key because it takes you a moment to really critically analyze and understand from someone else's shoes, from someone else's experience. I know oftentimes, I'm just going to add to the conversation. I know oftentimes that when people hear, guest speakers come or, people share their experiences, they feel so connected to the stories or they learn so much from that moment. It's because they open their hearts in that moment to listening to someone else's stories and experience. And so I love the fact that y'all mentioned about that because I think that's very key to leading on this journey, especially within the spaces at FSU, because you're constantly navigating and encountering students on a daily basis where we don't know what their daily life looks like. We don't know what the issues that face them. We don't know what's on their mind the moment that we talk to them. The least they can care about is about a meeting. They probably are still stuck on the slow road that someone told them 2 minutes ago. So I'm so happy that y'all mentioned about being empathetic and connecting with students on this campus. Getting into the next question, which I think y'all kind of touched upon, but we can definitely dive deeper into, is that during this journey, as you notice these things that are missing from peers, however, on your journey, does your journey itself create positive and sustainable change?
I feel like I don't know. Can you repeat the question? It was kind of going in and out.
Okay, no problem. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So the question is pretty much like asking, like, on your journey through leadership or just in general, through multiple spaces, when you are enabling leadership and navigating, does that itself create positive, sustainable change? For instance, are you being empathetic? Does that create positive, sustainable change? Like, what actions are you doing? Or do you feel the actions that you're doing or leadership itself as you navigate with your peers, do you feel as if that creates positive, sustainable change?
I think I would like to go. This is a question that I think we as leaders really have to ask ourselves is, are we creating positive changes or are we just doing something for the title or for the acclaim of it? And I think the only way to create positive, true, sustainable change is by changing hearts and changing people's lives. When we can touch someone's heart and ask them, how are you doing today? And how can I help you, as whether it be an executive member of your organizations or whether it be like you're running for election or something, if you can change someone's heart and change their lives, you can create that same thing for someone else. Like they can go change someone else's lives by creating leaders and creating new people and new stories. That is how we can create positive change, because one person can change the world if you just brighten their day or something like that.
Just to touch based on what Ireland said, I agree with everything he said. I think for me, it's just leading by example, just being the change that I want to see in people. Like Ireland said, going up to somebody and just saying something so simple. It's really the small things that, build upon big things. So you never know, like something you say, how it can affect someone's mood and affect what they'll do in the future. So I think that just being that, that leader in the community that people want to be, and just talking about the changes you want to see, and just being a person that's trustworthy, somebody that people look up to, and somebody that people will always want to go to. So I think that it starts with ourselves.
I'm gonna go next, and I'm gonna second what both Morgan and Ireland have said while adding on like a new piece. I just feel like when we come to the university, we're here for 4 years, no matter what university you attend. And some of us hit the ground running and get super involved. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to find the space on campus we want to impact. And when you graduate, leaving a legacy is not the accolades or the spaces that, like, the positions you held on campus, the spaces that you were in. I feel like it's what people say about you when you're done, when you leave the university. Are you still echoed in conversations 2-3 years after you leave because of the things that you've done on campus? I feel like in order for that to happen, you have to be an intentional leader. You have to sit up here and make sure you know the names of your executive board. Make sure you come out to events if you are currently holding a position such as president or vice president. Make sure you show up for others. Make sure you have that empathy and connect with other individuals. I feel like if you are not talked about after you leave the university, as specifically on your character as a person, not the positions that you held, that's how you create positive, sustainable change, knowing that she did big things, he did big things, they did big things. And I just want to continue what they started and keep pushing forward. And this is a great event, or this is a great tradition that they started specifically in their organization. And I'm going to go ahead and further this. I'm going to add a new element to it. That is how you create positive, sustainable change.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everyone said. Specifically, I typically like to do a lot of self-reflections and constructive criticisms. So at the end of the day, your name is your brand and you represent you. And so you want to make sure that the legacy you leave, like Ramoni said, is a positive legacy and it's not just one of holding name tags. So whenever I do, I make sure what I'm going to do is intentional and it has longevity. And some things they're not able to have longevity. That's just being honest. But just the things that you put your energy into is the things that you want to get great energy out of. So the people that are on this panel, I know for a fact have done things that created long, sustainable changes in all their organizations and even in their communities. So I think me personally, I would like to think at the end of these 4 years that I've had, when they talk about me, it's going to be something great.
Yes, I hope y'all can hear me clearly now. Wi-Fi is working fine. But I agree with what everyone said, and I would just also like to say that with to create positive, sustainable change, I think it's also being willing to kind of either be a learner in every space that you frequent, or be that person who's willing to educate others and create those safe spaces for people to learn. And I think that myself and I, yes, I'd agree with Brianna. Every other person in this room has gone down their own path of doing that in the spaces that they have been in. So I would say that we've definitely worked towards positive, sustainable change and the work that is sustainable, because as Brianna also said, it's all not sustainable is going to demonstrate itself to have those benefits that we're hoping for it to have.
Thank you all so much for sharing and with these comments. Is very great because we are more than our titles and our name badges. So with what you shared in this space, let's acknowledge that. So let's cherish that our stories and our gifts in this space. So moving on to the next question. How can our experience and identities help fulfill the mission of the movement outside of political affiliation?
Well, so my experience with the movement is not just the experience of being someone who's just affiliated with it politically. I'm affiliated with the Movement 850 in itself. And the Movement 850 is a very powerful organization based in Tallahassee. And that in itself is just it outside of it being political. Our experiences as a whole on campus and off campus is one to talk about. I'm big on not politics but activism and being an activist for my identity-based groups, my communities, but also other people because there's people that can't speak for themselves or they just don't feel comfortable. And the movement in itself is not just a political party because they speak for people who are underrepresented. They speak for people that I would like to speak for. And just that in itself is what makes the movement powerful, more powerful than anything. We definitely like the term is when they go low, we go high, and we go really, really high with the movement. And we represent all types of people. So it's very much beyond just politics. It's a lifestyle.
Um, okay, so I would echo what Brianna said, but I also feel like past outside of political affiliation is just being present, showing up for others. I understand we're in an election season, but no matter like the outcome, and we always hope for the best, I just feel like we just need to make sure that no matter what, the work that's being done by the movement is still continued. You still support others, you still show up to the events, you still advocate for the underrepresented communities. That goes outside of political affiliation. That goes to having a genuine care for the students on Florida State's campus and wanting to make the university better as a whole. And regardless of the platform that you are currently given, impacting one life every single day definitely can promote some change and build a legacy and create movement. And I feel like that is the purpose of the movement. We're concerned about the students and we're concerned about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I feel like past the political affiliation, you have to go out, speak to them, build those relationships, advocate for them, and just know that you're showing up for them day in and day out, whether they know it or not. They'll see it in the end or in the beginning. But I feel like that's how you have a mission of movement outside of political affiliation.
Yes, I'd agree with what and Brianna also said, because I also participated in some of the activities that the movement held during the summer with their advocacy work and the movement 850. And I would, when it comes to using our identities, it's really about being honest and being vulnerable when it comes to those experiences you've had, so that you can connect with the individuals in your communities. And I think that outside of political affiliation, that's the bigger picture in terms of the movement, is being able to make those connections and do the advocacy work that actually benefits the community, so that we can see those changes that we're striving towards.
I think that sorry about that. But for me, the personal reason why I joined the movement was due to its uniqueness as an SGA party for caring so much about the Tallahassee community. And I think that through our histories of SGA, and specifically FSU as a whole, has really operated outside of its own, or has operated inside of its own little bubble. And I think trying to break that and make sure that we are not only caring for the needs of our own FSU campus, but also for the community outside of our campus, the Tallahassee, like the greater Tallahassee area, including FAMU and TCC students. I think that that is how we can go beyond just the outside of our political affiliation, is to keep that energy throughout everything, including helping out in the community, doing community service, doing extra work to help the entire Tallahassee community and not just the Florida State specific community.
All right. Does anyone else want to add anything to the conversation? I know we definitely hit upon a lot of points. All right, seeing none, I definitely thank you all for y'all really got to the point, is that political affiliation is nothing just but an affiliation. It does not determine your effort. It does not determine your commitment to service, to leadership, to your brand. And so I think that it's very important for us, especially within this election year, and just with just everything that's been happening, is that you shouldn't let a political affiliation determine your quality as a leader, determine what you're capable of, because you see that, this is important for me to be in this political affiliation or this political affiliation because of X, Y, and Z, but when really it's about you. It's about you ensuring that you enable the factors. What do you need to do as a leader? What do you need to expose yourself as a leader to be the person, to enable your mission and commitment to diversity, to inclusion, to building inclusive spaces, to understanding what inclusive spaces looks like. There's so much that looks within it. And I think that we would definitely get into that conversation with our special guests. This was part one of our panel discussion. We have our special guest, Ben Crump, who unfortunately is unable to be here present because he's a busy man fighting for justice. But we were able to have a conversation with him, with our student body president candidate, Nastasia Jean-Pierre, about diversity, equity, and leadership, but most importantly, having that intergenerational dialogue, because we really do lack the intergenerational dialogue with other generations of leadership, of diversity and equity, because to be honest, the past generation has a different understanding of what leadership, what equity is than what it is now. The equity or the equality that they have been achieving back then is probably what we have right now, why we're on a different fight. And so I call you all to really get into this conversation, reflect on it, and then we will be tuning back in for a quick reflection on what that piece really got into, because it really get into some things that we all experience as leaders or really experience within our identities in the society. So I hope you all enjoy, and we will get into the video. Enjoy.
Floyd, Breonna Taylor.
The movement has some exciting things for you, so sit back and enjoy as we present an intergenerational roundtable discussion between Nastasia Jean-Pierre and Ben Crump.
Hello, Benjamin Crump. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so excited to get into this conversation with you. As for me, my name is Nastasia Jean-Pierre. I currently serve as Student Body Vice President, and I'm running for Student Body President. I'm going to give you an opportunity for you to introduce yourself.
Certainly. I'm Attorney Ben Crump. I'm a national civil rights attorney. I have the honor of representing the families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, as well as Ahmaud Arbery. And I guess because I do this work so much, Reverend Al Sharpton and Gayle King refer to me as Black America's Attorney General.
Surely do, surely do. Thank you for the work that you do. Our community needs it, and more importantly, it prepares us for something greater in the future. I want you to think about your time at FSU. What do you remember about your experience at FSU? What are some of the things that you were involved in?
Certainly, my time at FSU, simply put, the best time of my life. So, Madam Vice President, you all don't take for granted this time. You all treasure. So many people are in a hurry to get out, and then you get out and you look back and you say, if I could go back, no matter what you have done, what you have achieved, you think back to your time at Florida State and you say, those were certainly some of the best times of my life. So, you know, you learn a lot. It prepares you for the future. I certainly think in my case, I was president of the Black Student Union, chairman of the union board, and those are the leadership positions. And I know when I was president of the Black Student Union, we were standing up and protesting for more diversity, equity, and inclusion at Florida State then.
As you talked about, you used your voice to advocate for things that the university needs, specifically diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we know that young people specifically have so much power in mobilizing and cultivating spaces that, quite frankly, needed to happen a long time ago. So with that being said, as you look at to the young people who are currently on campus, who are doing some of the work that you started and you led back in your times, what are some advice that you have for us right now who are championing these conversations and pushing forward?
Well, you know, it's quite an appropriate question. as it is Black History Month, and I literally have been speaking to colleges and universities all around America, to young people. And my message is very simple, that you all are the reason we're fighting. And the reason we're fighting is because we have so much belief that you all represent the best that we have to offer the future. And oftentimes it's the young people. When you think about John Lewis and Martin Luther King, and these were young people who were the foundation of the struggle for equality, humanity, and justice for all. And so it's the young people who you see at the protests in Minneapolis with George Floyd and cities around the world, in Breonna Taylor, Louisville, Kentucky, and cities around the world, with Ahmaud Arbery and protests with cities around the world. It's the young people saying, we believe, America, you can be better. You can do better. We don't expect it, we demand it. And that's what the young people do. And you have to keep using that voice to demand America to live up to its highest ideas, and say, do you all believe in Thomas Jefferson's words that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness. Well, America, that means Black people too, because Black lives matter, and you have to keep using that voice over and over again.
Most certainly. And you touched upon a lot of crucial pieces that I think right now the current generation are internalizing for ourselves, and we're thinking, how do we incorporate our passions and the things that we care about a part of the movement? I find myself having a lot of dialogues with my colleagues and my peers, specifically about how do we unify, one, our university and our country through these advocacy efforts, recognizing that we can't do it in silos. Us Black people, we can't do it by ourselves, and we need people from all diverse backgrounds,
yes,
ethnicities, religions to come together to join in on this fight. So what exactly do you say to those people who want to unify in a collective space in bringing everybody along with the journey?
Madam Vice President, that is the issue. Because we need allies. We all have to do this together. The thing that I was heartened by in the protests after the tragic killing of George Floyd, where the officer had his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, was the response from not just the Black community, but from all communities. The protests were multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-generational, multi-geographical. I mean, you had people from everywhere saying, until we get justice for George Floyd, none of us can breathe. And in many ways, it was the first time in my lifetime that I saw America ready to finally have this conversation. This very important conversation that for so many times they tried to dodge. And it was, George Floyd, seeing that video, once you saw it, you could not unsee it. So a lot of allies who were sitting on the margins said, I can no longer sit by and not use my voice. I never forget an example. I went to speak on Juneteenth, about a month after George Floyd was killed. The Truist Bank, the bank that merged between SunTrust and BB&T, making it the 8th largest bank in America, invited me, and we were on Zoom, and they had about 3,000 of their partners and executives and bankers across the nation. And I remember their CEO introducing me. His name was Kelly King, and he said something so profound. He said that the reason I invited Ben Crump to give this fireside chat to talk about these social justice issues is because this became very personal to me. He said, I'm an older white man. Some would say I'm conservative. I live in a gated community with other corporate executives. And oftentimes we don't get involved in these types of matters. But one of my neighbors, who was also an older white man, a corporate executive, came and knocked on my door. And he said, Kelly, he said, man, do you see what's going on out there? You got people protesting, people marching in the streets, cities on fire. It's getting bad out there. He said, we got to call somebody. Somebody got to do something. And Kelly King said that he sat there for a moment and he reflected as he looked at his neighbor. He said, I didn't know somebody's phone number. I didn't know somebody's address. And I didn't know somebody's name. And he said, after another moment of reflection, it suddenly hit him. He said, where are somebody's who have to do something? Where are somebody's who have to come up with a solution? He said, it can't just be their issue, it's all our issue. We all have to work to find a solution because like Martin Luther King said, we all have a role to play in the struggle for justice and equality.
Most certainly. And you highlight a lot of the passions and the pains and the sorrows and a lot of the things that we can't, stray away from when we talk about these advocacy efforts and issues.
And I want to say, because he concluded, that old white man said, this is our issue. And until people see it as our issue and our problem collectively, we would never solve this problem. The great Ella Baker, the civil rights icon who started the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with John Lewis and them, she said until white mothers cry just as hard when little black boys are killed as they do when their own children are killed, then we won't see a change.
And we need to be able to take in our neighbors' problems.
Exactly.
I love that you mentioned Ella Baker because the next part of the conversation, I really want to highlight the piece that we've seen very, very, very adamant, especially in 2020, the revolutionary work that Black women have been doing for a really long time. But most recently, with the election, the previous election that happened with Madam Vice President Harris being elected as the first Black woman to be elected in that position. So specifically, how do you feel about Black women being highlighted for the work of activism that they are currently doing? And what does that mean for the future?
Now, it means so much, Vice President Javier.
Yes.
To have Vice President Kamala Harris make history as the first woman of color to be vice president as well as the first woman. And I think about my 8-year-old daughter, Brooklyn, who now can see that a woman can reach the highest echelons of our government. It's very important to be able to see it, not just it be a theory all the time. And I'm very close to Kamala Harris. We're very good friends. And so we talk frequently. And one of the things she always reminds my little girl, Brooklyn, you too can be vice president and president. And she reminds everybody she comes in contact with when she gives speeches, I may be the first, but I definitely won't be the last. And so that's very encouraging to bust those glass ceilings wide open. And the fact that you have so many women who you have so many women who raised their voices this year in 2020 for our sister Breonna Taylor. It was so important to hear Oprah Winfrey use that voice, Gayle King, Beyonce, Jada Pinkett Smith, Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, all of them said we won't be silent because oftentimes black women are marginalized and never given the attention that even brothers get when they have suffered these type of tragedies and injustices. As Malcolm X said, the black woman is the most disrespected person in America. He said the black woman is the most neglected person in America, and the black woman is the most unprotected person in America. And so over 50 years later, the tragic killing of Breonna Taylor in her own home made us refocus on that question. Is it still the same in America today? And I'm so happy that black women were the ones who proclaimed with a resounding response, no, we are not going to be disrespected and neglected and unprotected. We won't, because we're going to stand up for each other.
And I love that you highlight that, because black women have always been a part of this conversation, right? For me, myself, to think about even running for this position that I'm currently running for, if elected, I will only be the third black woman to serve in that space. And again, as Harris said, if I am elected in that space, I won't be the last. There has to be people that come after and push beyond these barriers and these obstacles that have been set before us. So I want you to think about everybody that's listening right now, everybody that's tuning in. What's something that you want them to take away from this conversation, if anything? If they couldn't get anything else from this conversation, what would you like for the audience to remember?
You know, oftentimes I give these speeches and I want them to always know that it is within them to make a difference. I think about Trayvon Martin, who some of you all were probably too young to remember, but in 2012, Trayvon was walking home 17 years old with a bag of Skittles and a can of iced tea. He was profiled, pursued, and shot in the heart by a neighborhood watch volunteer. And I'll never forget this Howard University law student, a young white boy, called me up as Trayvon was starting to get big. It had not become the #1 news story in the world. By that time, LeBron James hadn't put on the hoodie and said, "We're all Trayvon." President Obama had not went out in the Rose Garden and said that if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. Before all of that, this Howard University law student called my office out the blue, and he said, "Attorney Crupp, I just wanted to know if I could have your permission and the family of Trayvon's permission to start a Change.org petition to say that the killer of 17-year-old Trayvon Benjamin Martin should at least be brought to court and have to face the evidence and the witnesses against him." And I said, you know, I'm sure that won't be an issue, and we thank you for your activism. And just him stepping out saying, I could do something to make a difference. It became the largest petition in Change.org history, with over 5 million people going to sign that petition saying the killer of Trayvon at least should be charged. You can't kill an unarmed black teenager and go home and sleep in your bed at night and it just be, we go on to the next day. And so that's what I would say to the young people. And the last thing I would say is simply this. You know, Martin Luther King said that the coward asked the question, is it safe? He said expediency asked the question, is it politically correct? And then he said, oh, vanity comes along and asks the question, is it popular? But then Dr. King said, conscience comes along and asks the question, is it right? And Dr. King concluded, there comes a time, Madam Vice President, when one must take a position that's neither popular nor politically correct or not even safe. But Dr. King said there comes a time when one must take a position because their conscience tells them it is the right thing to do. And it is the right thing to do to stand up and fight for diversity, inclusion for everybody. And that's why I'm so proud of you, Madam Vice President, because you're using your voice to speak truth to power and say that everybody should be included. That's the only way we can make Florida State better.
Exactly. So again, thank you so much for sitting down with us and talking to us today. You heard it from Benjamin Crump himself. The work must continue and we must do it together. And with that, I leave you guys and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Oh, y'all, I gotta wake up after that because that was a lot. They dig deep. They dig deep into that conversation. I'm gonna just give a minute for everybody to come back and gather themselves. But it definitely was a lot.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much for those that are tuning in and still watching our live stream. So with the conversation that occurred, we'd like to ask our panelists, what is the biggest takeaway from it that you correlate with or you don't correlate with, and why?
I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I really enjoyed the video. I thought a lot of things that were said were very important, but one thing that really stuck with me was how Ben Crump highlighted the fact that everything, how everything isn't the same in terms of, because we were talking about earlier, we were talking about how we need to come together, we need to be more united, but he kind of highlighted the fact that this past summer and with everything that's been going on, this is the most united that we've been, and I believe that some of us can attest to that. Like if you went out to the protest, there were different groups and of people with different identities from across the board. So I thought that was something really important that he brought up. And on the same note, there's nothing wrong with being more united. So there's still a lot of work to do, but I really enjoyed the fact that he highlighted that difference between the generations, how the generation before us, when it came to protesting or participating in anything that has to do with advocacy, where a lot of the times it was each person in their respective identity kind of fending for themselves, but we've seen a little more unification with recent events. So that was also really nice to hear.
I'll speak next. He hit so many points that it was honestly hard to decide what was the biggest takeaway because the whole conversation was just important and meaningful and nice to hear. But I would say the biggest takeaway that I took was his acknowledgement of young people and the power that we have when we are all united and we are all together. This past year, specifically the summer of 2020, you saw young people protesting in the streets, letting people know that what's going on is not okay, whether I identify with this community or not. I understand that, as he said, we're all created equal, as he was quoting Thomas Jefferson. And I don't feel that it is okay for someone who has the same rights as me and who is as equal as me to have this happen to him, to have this tragic death, to have something that is not okay by the hands of police. So I definitely believe that he acknowledges that, yes, we are in college and these 4 years are where we understand ourselves and we define ourselves as human beings. But this is also where we are able to mobilize our communities and create change. Their generation was fighting for the diversity and inclusion that we are now at for these universities and in our communities. And now it is our turn as young people and the next generation to stand up and move into that next phase to try and get to our goal of where we all see each other as equal, no matter our race, nationality, or our ethnicity.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with Ramone. Um, the first thing that I remember as a young child was the Trayvon Martin case, and Benjamin Crump. He spoke on that severely. Um, and even now with the George Floyd, I woke up every day in the summer and just thought, is this history repeating itself? Is it going to continue to repeat itself? And what can I do as a Black woman in America to stand behind that? And I had to really sit down and have a conversation with my family, and I had to have these thoughts and the self-reflection to myself and think, is this something that I'm willing to, one, go to jail about, or two, even die about? And it's not an extreme level in any way, but it's is this the cause because it's my life, or it's justice? So um just being that person, even like Benjamin Crump, we all have our fight to fight in different areas. He fights his fight in the court. There's people that fight their fight in the streets. There's people that do it financially. There's all type of ways to fight the good fight. And me as being a leader, even on campus, the takeaways that I got from this video was very powerful. I'm going to definitely have some type of self-reflections from this video, but just gauging different ways that we can continue to fight. Just because there aren't millions of people in the streets right now doesn't mean that there's not a cause to always be fought. We're going to constantly fight these battles, generations to come, and we hope that the goal in mind, which we're all pressing towards, is liberation and freedom for Black people, people of color, LGBTQ plus community, everyone. So that's just my thoughts. It's a very powerful video. I could go on for hours, but I'll just leave that there.
I'm going to chime in real quick because I was there for the recording. And what really resonated with me was I really love the fact that he mentioned the Malcolm X quote about that. I mean, the most disrespected person is the Black woman. Hearing that quote as a kid, it wouldn't click. It wouldn't click. Being on this campus at the Florida State University, it clicks every single day. But for me, that doesn't navigate in the shoes of a Black woman. It's not something that I have to face with as reality. And so that's something that I don't correlate with, but it's something that I have to correlate myself is because I have to use my power and privilege as a male to amplify Black women voices in spaces, whether it be me making sure that I don't butcher whenever they speak, whether it be me making sure that I always don't be the first person to speak in the space, whether it be me making sure that I have Black women helping me with my programming and centering their voices in them on any platform. That is a mission of mine. I'm so happy that y'all are in this space because y'all are all wonderful Black women who are doing the work and doing what is needed to be done that other people aren't. And so that's something that I don't correlate with, but I have to correlate myself because we have to recognize our power and our privilege and how to be an allyship because everyone has the potential to be an ally, no matter what your identity is. All right, does anybody else want to share before we end off the reflection of that piece? I know it was, for some, it could be a lot to process and reflect on. All right, seeing none, that will wrap up today's event and panel discussion. Thank you so much to everyone that has came into this space. First and foremost, our panelists, thank you so much for joining us. Just a little, I've been doing a lot, and it was pretty hard for me and also for Brittany for us to confirm these participants, but they agreed no matter what, either it was the day of or 5 days ago, they agreed to being on this panel. So I definitely want to appreciate that, acknowledge the fact that you dedicated your time, your existence, your experience in this space, because that will make us stronger and more capable leaders. And so thank you so much for being in this space. Please make sure that you follow us at themovement.fsu. Brittany, is there anything that you would like to say to the public and to our panelists?
Yes, to our panelists, I thank you today for joining us this evening, sharing us your knowledge, experience, and also enlightening this space with your presence. To our viewers, thank you so much for sticking with us for this hour and going on 13 minutes. And I hope you all enjoyed. Please go ahead and follow us at movement.fsu for any more updates and events that we have going on with the movement, and stay in tune with us for this election week. So thank you, everybody.
Bye. Take care, everyone. Make sure you vote tomorrow. Tomorrow's election day.